success. Communication, innovation, purpose, and that includes trust and reputation and experience. So communication, innovation, purpose, and experience are 4 key elements. So what should brands be doing to address that? That is the subject of the day. And shortly we'll be joined by an elite panel of marketeers from some of Britain's favourite brands to ask them their views on that very question. And of course, we're going to give you, the audience, plenty of time to ask your questions too. So if you think of a great question, just pop it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens at any point, and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible in the last 20 minutes or so. But before that, we have Martin Guerrieria. Martin is Global Head of Research for BrandZ at Kantar, and he's going to tell us about all the key findings of the research in more detail. But before that, a quick intro on Martin. He has a whopping 20 years of quantitative research experience and has worked with top clients such as Unilever, Sony, Bacardi, Cadbury, Shell, Ferrero, Vodafone, GSK, and the list goes on. But most importantly, a fun fact about Martin. We'll have this for all of our panelists. Martin is a twin and also has twins himself. There you go. Who knew? So he's a very busy man and we are lucky to have him. So over to you, Martin.
Thanks, Craig, and hi everyone. And yeah, my twin girls will be very happy with the mention, so thank you for that. I'll mention that to them tonight. Let me just quickly share my screen and then we're away. Okay. So I've called today's presentation A Call to Arms in a Post-Pandemic Landscape, which is quite a big title. And I know we're not quite post-pandemic yet, which is why the post bit is in inverted commas. But as Craig said, the presentation is all about do brands still matter in this new landscape, and essentially what are the key things that brands need to do and think about in order to succeed. So clearly, you don't need me to tell you that the current accelerating pace of change is already rapidly progressing. We know that consumers have obviously got changing needs. We know that only those businesses with a genuine competitive advantage are going to actually emerge as winners. So against that backdrop, do brands really still have a telling role to play? So we can move the slides on, there we go. So many of you would have seen this slide before, and it's now more relevant than ever. I'm just going to take the notes off because it seems like you can see them, which we don't want. There we go, that's better. So many of you would have seen this slide before, as I said, but it's now more relevant than ever. So it looks at the performance of strong brands as identified by BrandZ against the performance of the S&P 500 and the MSCI World Index since we launched BrandZ's first global top 100 most valuable brands way back in 2006. Now, in the current environment, we're seeing strong brands not simply survive, but thrive. We see clearly that they deliver better returns for shareholders and are more resilient in times of crisis. We saw it in the financial crisis of 2008, and we're seeing it again during the course of the current pandemic. But there's even more than that. So strong brands also recover more quickly. The recovery rate of strong brands was much faster in 2008 than both the S&P 500 and MSCI. And to Q4 last year, they'd recovered at an even faster rate than that. So strong brands are now far exceeding their starting point prior to the pandemic. So what are the implications of all of this? Well, as we've seen, the investment community is increasingly looking to strong brands for a degree of certainty. These investments mean brands are worth more than ever. So at the present time, marketers have an unprecedented opportunity to add value to their businesses. Effective marketing and brand management can and should provide at least part of the critical competitive advantage that I mentioned earlier. So establishing the right strategy, And importantly, being able to course correct by checking in on progress has never been so important. So now let's look at British brands in more detail. If we look at BrandZ's most valuable British brands in 2020, we see an eclectic mix, which demonstrates the power of brand to add significant value across a wide range of sectors, from mobile phones and banking to supermarkets and spirits. Investing in establishing a strong brand has the potential to tip the scales in your favour. And as a quick aside, we've got our 2021 ranking being published in September, so do please join us again for that. So putting the recent performance of British brands into context, as Craig hinted at earlier, doesn't tell such a happy story, unfortunately. So their progression is lagging both current projections for the global economy and the rate of progress of BrandZ's most valuable global brands. Plus, in context against the rate of progress for top 30s in other markets, British brands sit well down the list, as you can see. On a global stage, we're seeing that the presence of British brands in the global top 100 continues to shrink year on year. If we compare the value of the most valuable British brand to the value of the 100th brand in the global list, the two lines are growing ever closer together, and soon there may be no British brands represented at all, which would obviously be a real shame. So what's the secret to successful brand building? Well, in fact, there are three key elements: being more meaningful, different, and salient to consumers than your competitors. And using BrandZ evaluations alongside brand equity data, we know that those brands achieving meaningful difference are likely to grow at a much faster rate. So maybe we can tell a more positive story by looking at meaningful difference for British brands rather than brand value. Well, unfortunately not. In fact, we're seeing some erosion of meaningful difference for the most valuable British brands over the course of the last 3 years. And the most valuable British brands are less meaningfully different than their peers in other markets. And in fact, many British brands are more salient than meaningfully different. They're trading on their fame, which can be an exposed position for brands to be in. And we see evidence of this risk by looking at the changing face of the British high street. Many of these brands have recently gone out of business, and their data show a similar story. Depth of consumer relationships, lagging profile. Declining relevance and eroding difference means lower budgets, less marketing impact, and brand not making the telling contribution it really should. As a quick aside though, let's not forget that strong brands are resilient things and can continue to be valuable assets even after their original owners go out of business. After the collapse of the Arcadia Group last year, for example, Topshop, Topman, Dorothy Perkins, and Burton were all quickly snapped up by ASOS and Boohoo, respectively. But the reverse can also be true. A brand with a strong relationship with consumers and the potential to grow share does not guarantee immediate success with the investment community, as Deliveroo's so far underwhelming IPO has recently proven. So we know meaningful difference is a critical outcome, but what are the important factors in achieving it? Well, we've looked at the performance of over 1,000 brands in the UK over the last 3 years and identified 4 key pillars that drive success. Brands that do these things better than their competitors are more meaningfully different to consumers and stand a greater chance of success. The 4 imperatives for brands are to communicate creatively, innovate meaningfully, build brand responsibly, and deliver unique experiences. So what we'll do now is take each of the 4 pillars in turn and look at some examples of brands defined by each one, both in the UK and abroad. So starting with communicate creatively, creating content that makes a brand stand out from the crowd and builds positive associations. And a great example here is Cadbury, with a long history of creative, impactful advertising that contributes to defining the brand. From the joy-based gorilla trucks and eyebrows executions to the more recent campaigns built around generosity and small acts of kindness. Consistent use of iconic Cadbury purple also helps by boosting branding as well. Honourable mentions for other British brands defined by their creative communication go to Compare the Market, Go Compare, Yorkshire Tea, Churchill and Lloyd's. If we look globally, Nando's is an excellent example within this pillar, one of BrandZ's most valuable South African brands. Built on personality as identity, rebellious and fun, with humour at its heart, occasionally poking fun at competitors, but also carefully localising content in a humorous way in markets around the world. Moving to the next pillar, meaningful innovation gives a brand an edge in meeting the needs of consumers. That is not innovation for innovation's sake. We mean brands striving to better meet the specific needs of their customers. Okay, so Dyson may have had a little bad press recently, but it remains a perfect example of the power of meaningful innovation to attract consumers and justify a higher price. Distinctiveness and product excellence continue to drive success far beyond the UK. Now, the honourable mentions in this pillar go to Brewdog, Octopus Energy, Monzo, Gymshark and Innocent as other examples of British brands performing well. If we then look on the global stage, the Indian communications brand Jio is a great example of how an innovative business model can disrupt the status quo in an already firmly established category. So Jio introduced a mobile service in India back in 2016 and quickly built a huge customer base by offering free data and then very affordable data plans after that. So that completely disrupted the pricing structure of the whole market and allowed more of the population to get online. The brand is now beginning to transcend the category by offering wireless broadband and fibre services for homes and businesses. So for the third pillar, building brand responsibly is an increasing consumer expectation, as I'm sure we're all well aware. Brands need to practice what they preach rather than pay lip service to ethical issues like sustainability, inclusion and diversity, and the treatment of staff and suppliers. Again, as I'm sure we all know, consumer trust is really hard to win, but it's certainly much easier to lose. So an example that fits really well here of a British brand. So founded in 1976, Body Shop's original vision was to sell products with ethically sourced, cruelty-free natural ingredients. No products were tested on animals, and ingredients were sourced directly from the producers. Today, the brand retains extremely strong responsibility credentials. Honourable mentions on this pillar for other British brands performing well: Lush and the Co-op as brands also defined by their environmental and social responsibility credentials, and also to John Lewis, Marks and Spencer and Waitrose defined by their fair treatment of staff and suppliers alike. Looking abroad, the delicious Tony's Chocolonely, if you've not tried it, do please buy it. It is really genuinely delicious chocolate. It's a Dutch brand which was founded in 2005 with the goal of ending slavery on cocoa farms in West Africa specifically. All of Tony's products are guaranteed slavery-free, and the brand achieved the #1 position locally in less than 15 years against some really large global conglomerates, some of whom have actually responded by launching their own fair trade bars. So Tony's is a great example of a brand achieving genuine impact through genuine purpose. And then to the final pillar. So Experience Uniquely is about delivery of high quality user experiences at all touch points. And that's when experiencing the product itself, obviously, whatever that product might be, but also in the consumer's online and offline journey. In terms of a British example, Costa Coffee has been busy evolving the brand's offer recently to continue to meet changing customer needs. They've launched consumer home products, a mobile ordering app, and 40 drive-through locations across the country, with more on the way. And in terms of the honourable mentions, other British brands performing well on this particular pillar go to Royal Mail, the BBC, Just Eat, Deliveroo, and the Premier League. And then looking abroad, this one's a particularly relevant example with home furnishings in the news so much recently. IKEA is a brand built around that immersive customer experiences. So spacious showrooms, meatballs and all, increasingly user-friendly digital services as well. One of the first brands to experience with augmented reality to help customers visualize their living space. This is a brand that's constantly looking for new ways to reduce friction for their customers. So in summary, there we have it. 4 key pillars for building strong brand relationships and supercharging the future for great British brands. How do you think your brand performs, and where do you think you could improve? Thanks for listening. Back to you, Craig.
Right, thank you, Martin. Just waiting for the screen to come back. I don't know if you can see me yet. Here we are. Right. Thank you, Martin. Some really fantastic insights there. So it's all about meaningful difference. And we're going to talk about lots of different aspects of that now. It's time to meet our expert panel. So I'm going to introduce them one at a time. So first up is Jane Bloomfield, who is Chief Growth Officer for the UK at Kantar. Hi, Jane. Jane, hi there. Jane joined Kantar in 2015 and is responsible for driving business growth across the UK. She originally started as a market researcher and since then has headed up new business teams, driven marketing and championed innovation throughout the businesses she's worked at. She's got a very impressive client list across her 20+ years in marketing. Brands like NatWest, Virgin Atlantic, Marks & Spencer, the British Heart Foundation, Amazon, Sky, Bacardi and Diageo. And the fun fact about Jane, there were a few I have to say, but we've chosen one which says she takes full credit for the invention of the Kit Kat Chunky. That is quite a claim, Jane. That is quite a claim.
I've eaten a lot of them, do you know?
Well, me too. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Jessica Myers. She is Director of Brand and Marketing at Metro Bank. So Jess is a member of the exec committee at Metro Bank, and having joined in 2019 to build the bank's first ever brand and marketing function. Before Metro Bank, she led the RBS brand team and had responsibility across its 10 portfolio brands. And before that, she held various brand and marketing roles at Commonwealth Bank of Australia in Sydney, and has also worked at American Express. Now, the fun fact about Jess is intriguing. On the same holiday, she was rescued by Duncan Goodhue, the Olympic gold medal winning swimmer, and played cricket with Serene Botham, the ex-England cricket captain. I would love to know that backstory, Jess, but we sadly don't have time, but welcome to you.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Good. Next up is Pamela Brown, who is the CMO at Vodafone Smart Tech. With over 10 years experience in the industry, Pamela has been responsible for leading global marketing strategies for notable household named brands in the tech sector. Prior to joining Vodafone, Pamela held senior marketing leadership positions at Aldermore Bank, British Gas and the connected homes brand Hive. And the fun fact about Pamela is that she built a new house from scratch during lockdown. I've managed to master sourdough, Pamela, but that is a high achieving lockdown. So well done and welcome to you.
Thank you, Craig, for inviting me. It's great to be here.
We could have a whole session just on your fun facts, you lot. And our final panelist is Fik Wilder-Giorgis, who is Marketing Director for Foods in the UK and Ireland for Unilever. Fik is an experienced global marketeer with a blended background of classical FMCG and digital marketing. And before taking on her current role, she was Global Digital Transformation Director at Unilever. She is a passionate believer in purpose-driven, digitally plugged-in brands and the magic that happens when creativity is powered by data, and is fascinated by all things tech. And the fun fact on Fik is that she discovered her love for gardening during the pandemic, like many people, I think. And she's still trying to work out how she's lived this long on the planet without coming across one of the greatest passions in her life before now. But all I can say, Fit, is that with age comes wisdom. So welcome to you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Craig. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure. So I'm sure the audience, you'll agree, we've got a fantastic panel to discuss this really important subject. And Martin's slides will have kicked up lots of thoughts in your mind. So feel free to start logging your questions now. We'll come back to them soon. So, but I'm going to kick off with a question for you, Jane, if that's okay. So we've had a lot there. There's a lot of detail and a lot, frankly, that's sobering for British brands. But if we flip that and you think of successful brands, what do they do well in your experience?
I think what the most successful brands we're seeing in the UK and around the world do, and what they have in common, is a really laser sharp focus on understanding consumers. So they use that understanding to drive their growth. And that understanding covers all of the 4 different areas that Martin has just discussed. So creativity, innovation, responsibility, and experiences. I think, one of the biggest questions I've been asked over the last sort of 12 to 14 months, and I wish, it's one of those questions you wish you had a pound for every time somebody asked it, is what consumer behaviour will stick coming out of the pandemic. And look, a lot of our behaviours will return to normal and what we were doing before. But what's definitely true is that some consumers will have reevaluated their brand choices. That's either just through changes in their circumstances, but also household budgets. So we are going to see some entirely new behaviours emerging, and that provides a really unique opportunity for UK brands to own a different or a greater share of both your mind and consumers' wallet. So I think that laser sharp focus, if you have a segmentation, is that segmentation still valid today? If you're targeting consumers, are you targeting the right audience? So that's almost where I would encourage everybody to start, is think about how those changes in how consumers either think, what they feel, how they shop, what they're buying, even how they vote. Lots of things will have changed for many of us, and act on them quickly, would be my advice as well.
Just building on that, Jane, if you look the other way and think about established brands and think about the issues they're facing, what do you think is causing them to see low, or in some cases no growth?
It's a really good question, and actually sometimes they're a victim of their own success. So what they have are processes and ways of working that can deliver what they deliver today. And you saw a lot of really established brands quite early in the pandemic, because the way that they are setting up, either through distribution, product delivery, was set up to make them successful in one way. And what they've not been able to do is switch quickly. So sometimes those established processes are the biggest challenge when established brands grow. When we look at those who in the UK that buck the trajectory, so really taking that sort of forward-looking view, it's about differentiation. That's how they're rocket fueling their brand, the focus on innovation and product excellence. So regardless of brand size, that's what people should be looking at. Have a look at the internal processes, and you've got to question whether or not they're the thing hampering you.
Okay, I'm certainly resonating with me. I mean, it's sort of age-old, really, isn't it? Consumer understanding and differentiation, and that feels
it's not a new message.
Well, it was never more important than now, coming out of the pandemic, as you said a minute ago. I'd encourage the panelists to jump in any time if there's anything that catches your eye and you want to comment on. But Pamela, I just want to turn to you now and just think about growth and thinking about long term really. So looking at the long term and your priorities, what do you see as the main drivers of future growth in your market?
Thanks, Craig. And actually, Jane, it really follows on from what you were just talking there about the established business versus sort of the growth engine of the business, and trying and doing things differently. And that's definitely what we do in Smart Tech. So to answer that question, I sort of need to give you a little bit more context about the market that I operate in within Vodafone, because it's not the core business. So you'll know Vodafone as the business that has 300 million mobile customers. We operate in 22 markets, and our core business is really connectivity for mobile phones. And I think we connect something like 1 in 10 people worldwide through our core business. But I've got the pleasure of working in our smart tech team in Vodafone, and it really feels like working for a small entrepreneurial tech business within a global corporate. And the thing that unites us with our core business or established business is really our purpose, which is about connecting for a better future. So, you know, what ways do we do that as smart tech? Well, we're really using smart tech to help people connect and protect the people and things that they love. And it's really built on that strong universal insight. Hopefully it'll resonate with you guys on the panel and with the audience as well. But, you know, when you love someone or something, you want to protect it. So if it's my husband, before we built this house, his bike lived in our kitchen because it wasn't good enough for it to be outside. Now, thankfully, it's in the garage. But that was definitely something that he loved and really wanted to protect. So what we do in smart tech is we are building smart devices, and it's the hardware, the software, it's the industrial design, it's creating that unique digital experience. And that's really the innovation for Vodafone. So we almost take that core capability of connectivity, so the network connection, the thing that gives us all those mobile 300 million connections globally, and we pop that connectivity into smart devices. So smart tech like smart trackers, smart watches, and the list goes on. And we do that in order to keep people connected in new ways to their loved ones and things that they love. And it's really about using that connectivity in new ways to improve lives. So Jane, it really speaks back to the point you were making. It's still our core business of connectivity, but building a business unit that can really focus on the product. We have a separate customer segmentation actually from the main business, and really create those experiences, make it very beautiful and seamless and intuitive in order for us to grow as a business. And I would say in our category, the predictions about smart tech are always like numbers in the billions. I think lots of different, proprietary research out there says things like 41 billion smart devices are predicted by 2027. And there's an annual growth rate in the trillions. So it's significant. But I think if we take a look around us, we've yet to see that flow through customer awareness levels, and customer take-up levels aren't anywhere near that yet. So there's a lot of talk out there. But I think in order for our market to grow, so the smart tech market, there are really 3 drivers to growth. So the first is new entrants into the market. So the more competition we can have, the easier my job actually is, because you'll all know that generating awareness is an expensive job to be done. And only last month, actually, Apple, which is a formidable brand, as we all know, they launched Apple AirTags, which is a tracking device. Albeit it works on different tracking technology to our products, but that will do a really big job in opening up awareness. The second thing I see for my market is around technological advances that can really enhance features in our products, either making them smaller or more beautiful, but also making them more powerful. So things like chipsets, components, batteries that last longer, so you don't need to charge your device overnight and things like that. So that's really a second thing that determines the product and the experience. And then data obviously sits alongside that as well. How do we integrate all this stuff? How do we make it really simple and intuitive for customers? And then finally, my job as a marketeer, I guess, is just opening up that category and trying to become synonymous with the category. And to do that, I really need to find ways to talk about and bring to life these solutions that are often service known customer problems, but they're unknown solutions. So that's quite a different job to do if we were selling something people have a problem for and they know the solution. Like I wake up and I know I need to clean my teeth and I can get some toothpaste and do that. It's slightly different here, but there are definitely known problems, whether it's pets that run off in the middle of the forest and get lost, but people might not be aware you can buy pet trackers for that.
Okay, I had no idea you could do that. I mean, it's a fascinating sector, and I really get your point about new entrants and tech advances. So you're saying that basically you need to create awareness, but also you need to have advancements in the experience, and alongside that, you've got to be distinctive as a brand. you're drawing upon a great brand, of course, which is number one on the list of 75. So you've got a good head start, I would say. Just shifting sector, Jess, it'd be good to if you could tell us about your growth strategy at Metro Bank, and in particular, I'm interested in how you prioritise. Have you established big bets, and how good are you at consistently sticking to them?
Yeah, and I love how Pamela kicked off her response with talking about purpose, because I'm going to do exactly the same, and hopefully we'll have a much broader conversation about purpose-led brands as the panel continues. But at Metro Bank, our purpose is to create fans. So this means for us being fanatical about delivering unparalleled service to our customers every single time. And Metro Bank is a growth business. We've only been around for 10 years, and in those 10 years we've opened 77 new stores on the high streets. We've got over 2 million customers, and we're constantly creating and launching new products and services to exceed their needs. So I guess our big bet is focusing on delivering extraordinary service. And if you deliver extraordinary service and meet and exceed these customer needs, the sales will come. And for marketers, for everyone on this call, that's really exciting, because what it means is taking really laser focused customer data and insight and making sure your actions and decisions come off the back of that. So having a really deep understanding of your customer needs and making sure that you're innovating your products and your services and positioning them accurately for your customers. And I think that for too long now, some customers and consumers have sort of tarnished brands. They're probably selling them things that they don't really need to meet their needs. And I think that some of the brands, and I'd probably put the big banks into this category, are now becoming these sort of recessive necessities in terms of what they're offering. They aren't creating, back to the slides from Martin earlier, this idea of meaningful difference for their customers. So I guess my recommendation on this is, it's not rocket science. There's no big secret in here. If you innovate meaningfully for your customers, build things based on deep customer insight in a way that exceeds their needs, growth will come.
Jess, it sounds incredibly clear and simple, which is, I think, really compelling. But if you were talking to the audience, and perhaps they're in a different market, are there any actionable recommendations or sort of best practice examples you can share that sort of just to help them in terms of driving a similar sort of level of clarity in their businesses and getting that consistency in their growth strategy decisions?
Yeah, I think, as the famous Steve Jobs says, it's complicated keeping things simple. It all sounds very simple when we say it out loud as marketers, being really clear. When you get into the humdrum of the business every single day, and there's competing priorities in there, and you're trying to compete on bottom line versus customer and which one wins in this conversation. From a marketer's perspective, we need to be creating and positioning products that meet our customers' needs. So making sure you really understand, we talked about segmentation and target audience, you really understand who your customers are, really understand what motivates them and drives them, and ensuring that you're positioning your offering in a way that's going to be exciting, innovating, creative, engaging, and building your marketing plans around that. Because it sounds simple, but if you deliver, and for us, if you deliver that extraordinary service, you will acquire more customers, they'll want to buy more from you, and you will retain them. And it's much easier to retain a customer than it is to go out and acquire one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jess, just to build on that, Craig, I don't know if you mind. Isn't it fascinating? I don't know about you guys on the call, but previously, to get close to consumers, we would run customer labs in our office. So we invite customers in most days and we'd be talking to them. We'd have focus groups in, an agency somewhere sitting behind the screen. Or sometimes we might do diary studies or go into people's homes, but not as often. Whereas I would say over the last 13 months, however long it's been, we could not have got more close to people. We've literally sat in their living rooms with them, their kitchens, their gardens. We've met kids and dogs and cats, and just actually seen in real life, some of the problems that people are facing. And I think that we've become so much more closer, we have as a business, and I think other brands will have felt this as well, because you've actually been in their environment. And sometimes when you take people into a focus group, particularly, one of the things I've always struggled with over the time I've been in marketing is, are people really truly saying what they feel? Whereas one-to-one on a Zoom call in someone's own environment, I think we're getting the real insights, we're getting to the bottom of things. And, you know, for some products and services, you can see that struggle very, very real. So I think that's just been a wonderful experience, albeit we have been in lockdown and it's been COVID and everything else, but an opportunity for us to truly understand people.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think that one of the benefits of us being a fairly new business, and me only been in my role for 18 months, there wasn't any marketing before I joined, means I haven't had to inherit an awful lot of excessive amounts of data tracking and basically measuring everything that moves. So as we've been building out the purpose and the brand strategy, we've been really super focused on what's most important for our brand and what's most important for our customers. And then we pour over the small amounts of data that are really impactful for us. So everything customer service, absolutely. Social listening, really important for us. And then we understand what those pain points are and we innovate against those. Because sometimes analysis paralysis can come in. You have way too much information and brands just don't know where to operate, and you have too much data to actually make the right decision.
Yeah, that really resonates. And lucky you being in that position. Just make sure you don't let it go awry.
It's a double-edged sword, but yes.
Thank you. Vic, I want to turn to you now. Because it struck me when Martin was talking that it's the ability to spot emerging consumer category and product trends, and so having your finger on the pulse in terms of the market and what competitors are up to is incredibly important. How would you rate Unilever's ability to assess and understand market developments?
I'd say I think we're pretty good in that area, as you'd imagine. For any FMCG, as with any FMCG company would be, we are quite consumer obsessed and consumer centric, right? That's kind of the hallmark of FMCG. And for a company like Unilever, and all our brands are built around meeting the needs of the company. And I think there are two ways I can describe this in terms of why we are doing very well. One is the bit around, what I would call the kind of the infrastructural bits around. For example, we have a really good CMI consumer marketing team that kind of who live and breathe this area of what's going on in the market, what's going on with consumers, what's going on with competitors, what are the trends emerging as well as established. So that we have really good people who look after that. And then the other bit is, of course, this idea of having partners like Kantar who do a very good job of helping us, pointing us in the right direction when it comes to what are the key trends in the market as they are doing right now. But I would say those are kind of the systemic ways of making sure that we are on top of things. Ultimately, it boils down to one thing, which is the softer skills and the culture of the company. So it depends, because kind of spotting trends and developments is not just somebody's job or a department's job. It has to be ingrained in the day-to-day of marketeers. So your marketeers naturally need to be quite curious and quite empathetic, that's the definition of marketing, right? A person who can't do either of those certainly will struggle in being a marketeer. So if they have that culture of curiosity, if they have that humility of understanding that kind of what's going on, worth noting is not happening within the four walls of the company, but outside of the four walls. If they love their jobs in terms of really living the day-to-day of consumers, making sure that they are where consumers are, whether it's on social or search, shopping, kind of living through the consumers' experience and seeing the market through the lens of consumers. If they are able to do that, I think you're winning. That's kind of the key bit. This idea of proximity to consumers is a key bit. And I think to Pamela's point earlier as well, through COVID, it's incredible how we have come closer to consumers than ever, because you can see the unvarnished truth, right? I think it's not just about consumers. I mean, all of us, if you recall a couple of years back when the BBC anchor, when the kids came running, it was a novelty, right? All of us were like, oh my God, how incredible is that happened. Now, every day you see kids and dogs and all sorts of things coming into the living rooms when we are having this conversation. So you can actually, this is in a way, the pandemic has created that, has removed that veneer and has helped us get closer to consumers and to the trends that are happening in the market.
Okay, there's a bit of a theme here around getting close to consumers, isn't there? Vic, whilst I've got you, should we just talk a bit about brand purpose as well? Because I think, you know, Unilever is well known for its commitment to brand purpose and being a very responsible business. But what does it really mean for Unilever, do you think, and also for you and your team?
Well, purpose is a fundamental part of how we do business in Unilever. So because we strongly believe the idea is not just about brands, right? So it's about how brands with purpose grow faster, how people with purpose thrive, and how companies with purpose last longer. This is just a proven fact. It's not just something we've dreamt up. You can see the numbers around that. So we are really, really big on purpose, and this is something that we kind of live and breathe every day. And it depending on kind of how you look at it at a macro level, at an overarching level. For example, the company-wide purpose is about making sure that we thrive towards making sure sustainable living is possible and commonplace for everyone. But underneath that, each brand, each of the kind of the 200, 300 brands that we have in our portfolio have found their very unique way of expressing their purpose, whether it is most commonly known on, which is Dove championing real beauty, or whether it's a matter of, you know, some of our local British brands, like, for example, Coleman's championing local quality local produce and producers, or even brands like Hellmann's kind of championing the fighting against food waste. Every brand has to have an angle when it comes to purpose. And I think the way I would describe it is we kind of often think that purpose has to be this worthy, lofty thing that we kind of, as marketers, we have to sit down and dream up and say, "Ooh, this is what we'll do as a brand going forward." For me, it's purpose is simplistically put, it's about us, regardless of the industry we're in. It's about us kind of giving our consumers, our audience, not just a product or a purpose to buy, but also an idea to buy into, because that's what makes each of this, whatever we're selling, lasting. If we align it with what they believe, and if we actually thrive, not just in terms of looking at the bottom line, but actually, if you have the bigger idea of making sure that we can make a positive difference and impact, whether it's to people or to the planet, that's when I think brands really find the magic of growth sustainably. Yeah.
I'm going to come to you, Jess, now, because we've actually got a question from the audience in this space. It's from Caroline Preston, and she says that she agrees that lots of people shouting about how they're successful, boo, is, you know, but they've got a terrible reputation around the treatment of staff and suppliers. So the question for you, Jess, is how important is social responsibility for customers of Metrobank?
Yeah, fab. Thank you for the question. So I guess it comes back, and we've mentioned purpose, and Vic, I love what you just said around purpose. For us, it comes down to purpose again. And we at our core are a purpose-led business. Our purpose is to create fans. And we ask ourselves that question every single day. Is this action going to create a fan in the process? And a fan is not just a customer, right? So when we exploded onto the high street 10 years ago, first bank on the high street in over 100 years, we look at it, we set out to challenge the status quo, I guess, to right every banking wrong. We looked at everything that consumers hated about banks. I hate that you're always closed, that when you're only open when I'm in the office, that it takes me 6 weeks to get an appointment with you and 3 weeks to get a card in the mail. And we said, right, how do we create a fan out of this process? How do we create a banking model that surprises and delights our customers and delivers extraordinary experiences? And that's not just customers, right? That's customers, that's colleagues, that's the communities that we serve. And we asked ourselves the same question as we went into the pandemic. How does brand purpose guide our decision-making to help navigate our brand through this pandemic? And again, support customer, colleague, and community. So as the other banks were closing their doors, removing themselves from the high street, we said, right, we need to look after our communities, we need to look after our colleagues, and we keep our stores open. That is the most important thing to us. So our purpose today is as strong as it was when we first opened our doors 10 years ago. We call it the red thread that runs through everything that we do. And it's at the core of every single Metrobank colleague. So at every point we ask the question, will this create a fan? Doesn't mean the answer has to be yes, because sometimes you have to say no. But how do you say no in a way that makes sure that someone comes out at the end having had a really positive experience?
Love that. Love that. John Lewis, I used to call it the thread of steel. So threads are clearly important. Right, we've got a question now from Joanne, I think it's Joanne Merecido. I think you're going to come on screen, Joanne, and ask the question rather than me asking it. So if you're prepared to do that, then please do. It's about immersive experiences. So I don't know if it's aimed at a particular issue. Hi, Joanne.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us your question.
Yeah, so I work for a creative production agency, and one of the things that really resonated from the presentation was we saw almost like an immediate shutdown from brands to run anything immersive, out of home, all of it sort of paused. But I guess, you know, as we're opening up, albeit very slowly, and I have been grateful to get to the pub for sure. What do you guys think about, obviously, with this immersive experience piece being quite important in these 4 pillars? You know, where do you see that in sitting with the growth or importance for planning in the next sort of half year or beyond?
Great question. Who wants to take that?
I can start just from a general point of view, what we're seeing. And hi Joanne, how are you? I think it will increasingly become important, right? You know, Jess has actually just talked about the importance of getting into branch and people seeing people and talking to other people. What we have is a natural nervousness. You know, not everybody will do things at the same pace, and that's really important. Again, it comes back to understanding your consumer. So who is your audience, and how comfortable will that audience feel about going out and going into more immersive experiences? I think the reality is lots of people will be ready for that and will want that. But it's about brands building confidence and trust with people that those are safe. You know, and they have to communicate that over and over again. You know, hygiene becomes a hygiene factor, but we've got to give people confidence that it's safe to return, but also think about your audience and what you're offering and who they are. You know, typically we saw sort of the over 55s being much more nervous initially, you know, about the entire experience. Lots of that group have now had 2 vaccines. They're becoming more confident. You know, you have a younger group who we're encouraging to take up vaccines, and actually things like vaccine passports will encourage further, but they will naturally be happier to get back out and about because they've always perceived the risk to be much lower. So think about your audience, but I think the overwhelming feeling is people are ready and keen for those, but you've got to give them a path to get there safely and securely.
Any other perspectives on that?
I'd just add on to the point which I find really inspiring about Master's presentation is around getting back to that creativity and innovation that is really true to your brand. I think one of the things we struggled with seeing brands slightly lose their way over the course of the last 12 to 18 months is every advert that came out started with, in these unprecedented times, we've been ... right? You missed the logo or the brand name. It could have been anything. Don't mean to offend anyone on the call. I'm sure we all fell into the trap. But make sure you get back to the core of who your brand is, what you stand for, and what you deliver to your consumers, and bring that to life in a really engaging and creative way, because you know, consumers are screaming out for us having brands that can create better connections, and we just don't want to need a commodity. So how do we make sure those brands have purpose, especially within Great Britain?
Good stuff. Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Does that help to answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Right. What else? I might just build on that creativity and innovation point. We're doing okay on time. We've got 10 minutes. And I think a question to all of the panel, really. I think this point about innovation is so important, and it seems to be holding at least some British brands back. And the question really is why. And we sort of touched on earlier around internal barriers to growth, actually. And Pam, you were talking about the fact that the part of Vodafone that you're in is different to Vodafone, and so I wonder if the cultures are different. And so I'm just really interested in, how do you remove barriers to growth and drive innovation, a culture of innovation within your organisation?
Yeah, I can take some of that, Craig. For us, culture is a massive thing. Customer focus and culture, they're the 2 key components to drive innovation, really. And I would say I've been in the smart tech team now for 3 years, really building it from scratch. And we went on a significant sort of hiring drive to make sure we had the right talent to help us build the products and services that we wanted to create and open up the category. So whether that was researchers, like we have in-house psychologists, our UX designers, our product managers, our developers, often skill sets that the core business perhaps hadn't started its journey on yet. But what we have seen over the last 3 months is the movement of what we've been doing in smart tech now flowing into the core business. And that's the same with the culture. Culture, we've been able to some extent, create a microclimate, again, that can, we talk about it in trying to create a culture where this is the best place to work in your life. And we have created a little community, we call it the Culture Collective. There were people that actually put their hand up and said, I want to be part of this. And they helped us dream up our mission for our specific business unit, all under the same purpose as Vodafone. And then some of the rituals, the behaviors, the things that we'll do as a team to create that culture, the way that we want to operate, how we want to work with each other. And if I just think back to when COVID, when we first went into lockdown, you know, we even wrote a Being Human charter, which were things like no meeting Tuesday, respecting people's personal time, WhatsApp messages, you know, keep WhatsApp to the jokes and the team stuff, but move everything to Slack or to email. You know, there were just all these little things that we've done, and I probably could talk about it for absolutely hours, but I won't, because there's other topics and I'm sure other people want to chip in. But it really, to be creative, you've got to unleash the talent, and they've got to create their own way of operating. And the spirit then helps you build the innovation, whether it's an innovation to the way you want to research or an innovation in product design or software design, whatever it might be. But it's really, I think it all starts with the people, the talent and the culture. I
really agree with that. And I love the no meeting Tuesday, by the way. I hate Tuesdays. Yeah,
it's a tough one to stick to, don't get me wrong. But even if people get half a day, they really love it, because even half a day without meetings is a joy for people.
I think that that's really important, that the cultural piece, it needs to be part of your culture about who you are. Otherwise, innovation will just be stifled at every point. We've got similar pieces and rituals within ours. We've got a couple of principles we live by at Metro Bank. One's called no stupid bank rules, which is all banks, you know, when a bank says no, system says no, we say no stupid bank rules. And the other one is bump it up, right? So if one of our frontline colleagues on the phone to a customer or in a store gets something and they're like, that's stupid, why are we doing that? They literally just bump it up, right? And so it goes flying up to the area to try and remove the blockage. And so we have a Yammer group internally where our store colleagues get on there and they write, like, customer came in, this was a nightmare, and we'll get it fixed. It's about innovating to remove customer pain points so they genuinely wowed by ease. Doesn't mean we need to innovate outside of who we are. At the end of the day, we are a retailer that offers banking products, not a bank, but we need to make sure that we stick to the core of what that is, and making sure that that culture of innovation is through every single person, and everyone knows how to kind of create better solutions for customers. So I love the idea of it being in the culture.
Yeah, and bump it up. I thought you were going to say bumping up bank balances then. I was like, right, I'm straight to that.
Bump it. It comes with a hand movement as well.
That's a really good example of culturally, people are able to bump it up, you know, take things to the top, let their voice be heard. And I think that's really empowering, isn't it, for people?
That's it.
That's great. I love that. There's a final question in the Q&A we've just about got time for, I think, for the last 2 or 3 minutes. It's an anonymous question, which is fine. So I'll maybe point this one at you, Fix. The question is, what consumer behaviours that have risen during COVID do you perceive will establish themselves as new norms within your differing sectors in a post-COVID world? So what have you seen during COVID that you think might establish itself as we sort of move forward?
Oh gosh, where to start? So I think we've had some seismic shifts as a result of COVID, right? And in every industry. And I think the trick is to find out, and Jen alluded to it earlier, this idea of which ones will stick and which ones will dissipate. Most of them are actually an acceleration of what's already going on. For example, if I reference e-commerce, right? E-commerce has been on the up and up for the last 10 years or so. But the last 18 months, what is it, 18 months now? I've even lost count how long it's been since COVID came to the picture. But it had, I think it's just put rocket fuel underneath it, right? So it's just like gone incredibly fast, and it is here to last. It doesn't matter whatever industry you're in, it's here to last, because consumers who would never have tried that have tried it, they like it, and they're likely to stick around. So that's kind of something that we kind of have to live with. And other trends, like also, I think we need to be conscious around the fact that many consumers are thinking about, even more so post-COVID, this idea of conscious consumption, right? So increasingly, it's not just about buying the next thing. It's also about what's the impact on me, what's the impact on my family, on society at large, and on the planet in general. That's the bit that is coming through extremely strongly. And I think for each of us who are in the business of marketing and selling services and products, we kind of need to be conscious of that, because it will be the thing that will prevent consumers from buying what we're selling, but it will be the reason why consumers will buy what we're selling. So it's as binary as that. We can no longer afford to ignore that and assume that just by providing them a perfect product, they'll just buy it just because the product performs very well. And the third thing, of course, is health. And I'm not just talking about physical health, this idea of well-being in general, in terms of, I think consumers are increasingly into this idea of both a well-balanced life, both physically, mentally, spiritually. And this is the thing that we need to be quite conscious of when we are designing products and services, again, to say it cannot just be good enough because it's tackling a functional aspect of what that product has always been needed to. It needs to go one higher level and almost reach a higher need order, so that consumers can actually relate to it and buy it. So there's quite a lot of stuff going on, but I think I'd say these three are kind of some of the top ones that are certainly affecting the categories that I operate in.
Big and deep changes that you're saying. Really, really interesting. We could have like a whole hour just on that subject.
Absolutely. It's a topic on its own, Craig.
At least. So listen, I knew this would happen. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and we really could talk for hours. I hope you all enjoyed that. A huge thank you to Martin and to all of our panelists, Jane, Jess, Pamela and Vic, for participating, and to Kantar for sharing the research and insights with us all. I'm sure you found that really good food for thought. Now, a couple of Marketing Society things before we go. So first of all, we'd love to know what you thought of today's session. We're always really interested in your thoughts and where we can improve and what you'd like to see more of. So please take a quick minute and just let us know by filling in the feedback poll, which should be on your screen now. Thank you for that. And then just a couple of things coming up next in the Marketing Society I wanted to let you know about. On the 19th of May, at 12 to 1, British Summertime, we have in the Uplifters series a session called Have You Got the Courage to Create a Better Future? We will be joined by the global thought leader Peter Fisk, and he'll share insights from his new book, Business Recoded. So that's the 19th of May, 12 to 1. And then on the 26th of May, 1 till 2, we've got the latest in our global conversations, where we'll bring global leaders together to discuss how to balance long-term brand building with the need for short-term results, which in my experience is a age-old tricky balance to strike. So join us for that on the 26th of May. My phone's ringing just at the last moment. Having got through an hour. So you can find the full list of events on our webpage, so please go and have a look at that. But for now, that's it. Thank you all again for joining. Thanks again to our panelists, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.